The Colombian president opens the door, revealing the secret weapon inside that astonishes the world. Dear viewers, and welcome everyone back to Tuyen Mat, Episode 11. Distinguished guests, half a century has passed since the day we completely liberated our country. But that war still holds countless unrevealed secrets. The Coloming summit was such a closely guarded secret. Rumor has it that Coloming even has an entire secret tunnel system underneath that the Vietnamese side could never destroy. Among them was a weapon called the Gay Arrow, which possessed terrifying destructive power, with a force equivalent to that of a nuclear weapon. So how will this story ultimately unfold? All will be revealed in this issue. To serve the strategy of a localized war with escalating scale and intensity. In the mid-1960s, the Americans established a national strategic reserve stockpile. This area is located in Long Binh and is named the Long Binh Depot. Long Binh Depot is located 20 kilometers from Saigon and 7 kilometers from Bien Hoa, with a land area of approximately 24 square kilometers. But there is an underground tunnel system with many passageways, spanning an area of approximately 300 square kilometers. The exact area of the underground tunnel has yet to be verified. The site is currently located in Bien Hoa City, Dong Nai Province. Currently, Long Binh Depot is under the direct management of the 31st Regiment, a heroic unit of the 309th Division, 4th Corps. To the west and southwest, this area borders Bien Hoa 2 Industrial Zone, Amata Industrial Park, and Bixi Supermarket. The northern sector is held by the Direct Combat Battalion of the 309th Regiment, Armored Brigade. To the east is the direction to Vung Tau, with the Army Officer Academy No. 2 located nearby. It consists of numerous separate storage areas, extremely well secured and divided into dozens of compartments. Each warehouse subdivision includes dozens of rows of warehouses, both above ground and underground. Depending on the type of goods contained inside, the ammunition depot itself was constructed with multiple tunnels, containing hundreds of smaller storage units inside. Many steel doors are secured through a tight integration of software and hardware, creating an extremely robust security system. Some types of steel doors have a self-destruct mechanism that activates if they are unlocked incorrectly multiple times or subjected to strong force. According to available information, several Vietnamese and Soviet specialists lost their lives while attempting to open this coded door. And to this day, some of the sturdy steel warehouses still remain unopened. And no one knows what lies within. Strategic reserve warehouses must not only stockpile goods and weapons, but also maintain readily available USD cash reserves and rare resources. Securing the value of goods in the warehouse, holding USD cash, gold, silver, and various certificates of merit. Thanks to its extremely favorable geographical location, this place became the largest supply depot and the most solid defensive stronghold for the U.S. Throughout the Vietnam War, the Long Binh base was always a key target for the Liberation Armed Forces. Here are some notable battles. On June 23, 1966, our special forces launched an attack on the enemy's main supply depot, inflicting heavy losses, canceling the seizure of 40,000 artillery shells of various types. This was the opening battle, marking the first victory of the Bien Hoa Special Forces and paving the way for a series of subsequent engagements. In the fourth quarter of 1966, October, November, December, the U-1 Special Forces attacked the Long Binh Depot 3 times. 353,000 artillery shells and various types of bombs have been destroyed. On the night of February 3, 1967, the U-1 Special Task Force covertly infiltrated the main depot. Planting timed explosives, they blew up 40 warehouse rows, destroying 800,000 artillery shells. On August 13, 1972, Special Task Force 113 conducted an attack on the Nam Ba Depot area in Long Binh. The battle involved dozens of fighters, who were divided into 3 assault units to infiltrate and plant 108 timed explosive charges. At 4 a.m. on August 14, 1972, explosive charges detonated simultaneously, destroying 200 warehouses. After 17 days of efforts, the authorities successfully destroyed 15,000 tons of old, low-quality ordnance. On December 14, 1972, Soldier DAC-Com 113 infiltrated the aircraft parking area at Hill 50 of the general's headquarters. Long Bin Depot was hit by 61 shells, resulting in the destruction of nearly 200 military vehicles. Indeed, during the Vietnam War, no single force was powerful enough to make the U.S. military and the Army of the Republic of Vietnam apprehensive. By the Special Forces Soldiers of the Liberation Army. Author James Zungwas is a former U.S. Marine Corps lieutenant colonel who served in the Vietnam War. Recorded in a fascinating document. The Liberation Army's Special Forces soldiers were ambushed by the enemy right on the battlefield. They continuously launched surprise attacks against the American troops. Among these, the most remarkable is its exceptional ability to infiltrate heavily guarded areas with complete stealth. The guard must be extremely vigilant. In some cases, Special Forces soldiers spend an entire day infiltrating an enemy base and withdrawing safely without ever being detected. I understand. They always work in teams, and the team size flexibly changes depending on the nature of the task. It could be said that if, when measured and quantified, the Special Forces unit inflicted the heaviest losses on the enemy's war operations. The American, more than any other single combat unit. In 1972, Colonel Tong Viet Duong, then commander of the 113th Special Task Force Regiment, received comprehensive and advanced training in warfare. Based on the contents previously agreed upon by both parties, he dispatched a covert Special Forces team to attack the enemy's largest ammunition depot. In Long Bin, a location near Bien Hoa City, Long Bin Base was very large, spanning an area of approximately 5 square kilometers. This place stores a wide variety of ammunition, from small-caliber personal firearms to artillery shells and even aircraft-mounted weapons. All of these weapons and ammunition will be distributed to military bases throughout the South. Recognizing that such a critical weapons arsenal is highly vulnerable to becoming a target of attack, the U.S. military and the Republic of Vietnam worked to make Long Bin an impregnable, fortified base. They thought they had accomplished it. The base was surrounded by 9 2-meter-high barbed wire fences, with dense layers of sharp spikes arranged on top. From the outermost fence to the innermost one, the distance spans hundreds of meters. Amidst the area lie rolling earthen hills and damp marshlands. The distance between the first and second fence is significantly greater than the distance between the remaining fences. Immediately inside the outer perimeter of the military base, watchtowers are spaced 200 to 500 meters apart. This layout allows the defenders to easily pick off intruders like shooting sparrows. Each post is guarded around the clock. Night fell, and the searchlights from the watchtower ceaselessly swept every corner, from the outer areas to the very edge of the outermost perimeter. From dusk until dawn, tin cans were tied to the inner fences, intended to make noise as a warning if an intruder tried to cross. Between the fences, there are also countless anti-personnel minefields. The constantly changing mine placements made it impossible for the enemy to anticipate them. Flares are also used as decoys in many places. When activated, the launcher tube will fire the flare to an altitude of approximately 100 meters. Then a parachute deployed, allowing the flare to descend slowly. And as it fell, it illuminated a vast area. The ammunition depots at Long Bin were scattered across a vast area. To avoid a scenario where one unit exploding would cause a chain reaction, soldiers continuously patrol the surrounding area using motorized vehicles. Between patrols is a 5-minute break. In addition, foot patrols utilizing police dogs also regularly coordinate to support motorized patrols. The barbed wire fence surrounding the area gave the defenders a sense of security. However, this action also indirectly facilitates the infiltration of subjects. Because there is barbed wire strung between the fences, it's impossible to get inside to cut the grass. Therefore, the grass and trees grew lush and verdant. The tall grass provided ideal camouflage, concealing the intruders as they infiltrated the base. Overconfident in the formidable defense system, the general in the barracks grew complacent, allowing the grass to grow thick and wild. From the outer perimeter all the way to the very center, this system allows an intruder to remain concealed throughout their movement. Colonel Duong is thoroughly familiar with this approach. Attacks on a base the size of Long Bin rarely stemmed from a spontaneous decision. Typically, these operations are only deployed after many months, or even years, of meticulous calculation. Next comes the planning phase, when intelligence on potential targets has been fully gathered. In the case of Long Bin, this base was also just one of many targets that had been considered. And the decision to attack was made only after 2 years of careful reconnaissance. There is still ample time to gather intelligence on several potential targets. Before deciding what the top priority should be, Long Bin was chosen for 2 main reasons. This is the most accessible goal and can be implemented on a large scale. The Liberation Army has the capability to inflict the most severe damage on the enemy's weapons depot. After a long period, all information regarding the Long Bin depot has finally been fully gathered. And this base has been identified as the primary target of the 113th Regiment. A few days before the actual attack began, a drill was planned and conducted. This is the core requirement when preparing to attack key targets. The test run was conducted by a 2-person reconnaissance team to avoid the risk of casualties to the entire formation. This serves multiple purposes, including testing the base's security and defense perimeter system. Establish entry and exit points for the base and determine specific timings to approach the targets. Pre-positioned inside the base for placing explosives. The 2-member reconnaissance team carried out all activities exactly as the Special Forces unit had planned. There is only one key difference: they were not carrying explosives. And the next day, when the main assault officially began, those 2 reconnaissance soldiers would lead their comrades deep into the base. As night fell, the 2-man reconnaissance team launched a raid on the village of Kalaming. The 2 slowly approached the outermost perimeter under the cover of tall grass. Upon reaching the fence, they did not cut the barbed wire, a task that would only be performed during an actual assault. Instead, they tried to stretch the strings apart, creating a gap just wide enough to slip through. Then, restore the original condition. Cutting the barbed wire will leave traces indicating the base may have been breached, so the element of surprise is lost for the attack. Having breached the outermost perimeter, the reconnaissance team slowly weaved through the minefield, while still deliberately trying to be detected by the guards on the tower. The location of mines and flare traps is identified and neutralized by driving a nail into them. Having bypassed these devices, the group slowly advanced toward the next barrier. After clearing each barrier, they repeated the process of locating and disabling the mines. Simultaneously, flares were launched into the area between the fence lines to create a breach through the base's defensive system. The rehearsal began at 8 p.m. The team's goal was to make it halfway. At 11 p.m., the work between the 5th and 6th barriers was completed on schedule. There were still hours until dawn, but the group decided not to risk venturing deeper into the base at daybreak. Therefore, taking advantage of the tall grass for cover, the 2 members each dug a hole, hid inside, and waited. As dawn broke, the usual activities began to unfold within the Long Bin base. One thing was that the defenders at that moment had no idea an intruder had slipped in right beside them. The reconnaissance team lay in silent ambush all day long, just meters away from the enemy position. After nightfall, the group continued their journey to overcome the final obstacles. They slipped into the warehouse area after getting past the final barrier well after midnight. Here, they exploit the target's inertia to determine the necessary timeframe to approach them. The mission accomplished, the guerrilla team withdrew as silently as they had infiltrated, slipping through the 9 fences exactly along the route they had planned on their way in. At dawn, the reconnaissance squad returned to the unit safely. Report the full situation to the task force responsible for carrying out the attack. Shortly after the Ancestor Station withdrew from Long Bin, a scout was dispatched to a secret location to establish an observation post. With a surveillance camera system ensuring safety, it allows for continuous monitoring of the warehouse's operations, just as observing the path that the intrusion group had just created. This move ensures that the other party does not take any actions affecting the established roadmap. Before the actual attack began, to meet the deadline, the Special Forces team began their operation in the evening, 2 days before the attack was scheduled to take place. At 8 o'clock, 2 seasoned reconnaissance soldiers led the assault to retake the Long Bin base. This time, 5 special task force squads were deployed for support, equipped with explosives and detection devices. The campaign has 20 participants, divided into teams, each consisting of 3 or 4 members. Depending on the assigned target, the larger the target, the greater the amount of explosives required. Therefore, more people are needed to carry more explosives. Upon reaching the outermost barbed wire fence, the commando team swiftly cut through the wires to create a sufficiently wide gap. One person can crawl through. The last person passing through has the task of reconnecting the barbed wires to avoid detection. The leading team continued their journey according to the predetermined route from several days prior. And they continued to check everything to ensure no new mines had been planted on that path. After the Special Forces team departed toward Long Bin Base, Colonel Duong completely lost contact with them. Team members exchange information with each other using a system of finger signals. The team stopped when they reached the area between the 5th and 6th rows and began digging holes. The sky had just begun to lighten when they reached a safe hiding place. The entire commando team lay still and silent throughout the whole day. Under the cover of night, they quietly continued their journey. The match had entered its final seconds. The entire team had nearly broken through the opponent's last line of defense. Now, every member needed to be completely focused, and still careful to avoid catching the eye of the guards within the base. The explosive was connected to an M8 timing device. This small, finger-sized device allows. The explosive device was set with a timer delay of several hours to allow the Special Forces team enough time to retreat safely. After setting the timer on the explosives for 3 hours, the 2 commandos began their retreat. The entire team assembles outside the innermost delivery row before withdrawing together. The permitted delay time is only 5 minutes, no more. Those who arrive and gather first will not continue to wait if any team is late. The operation proceeded continuously, with all combat units successfully completing their missions and arriving at the rally point at the designated time. The retreat began, each member following in the footsteps of the one before them along the very path they had used to infiltrate the area. One person will imprint their footprint or handprint, and the remaining 19 people will take turns placing their hands or feet precisely over the newly created impressions. Thanks to the pre-cleared and well-scouted route, the group's retreat proceeded much more quickly than their advance. After breaking out, the commando team members moved directly to the regimental command post. Here, the team reported to the commander that the mission had been completed. At the first light of dawn, Colonel Duong and the commander of the Special Forces unit stood atop a high mound, their gaze fixed on the Long Bin base. The two kept glancing at the clock. Then, the tranquil atmosphere was suddenly torn apart. A loud explosion rang out. A series of loud explosions followed as the blocks of explosives planted by the commandos were detonated. Following that, a series of consecutive explosions rang out from the ammunition inside the warehouse. That dawn seemed to arrive early, as tens of thousands of tons of explosives ignited simultaneously, setting the entire sky ablaze with a brilliant light. The ground beneath their feet shook with each explosion. The shockwave spread over a distance of 30 kilometers. When daylight flooded the area, Mr. Duong saw a large column of smoke rising from the Long Bin base. Pleased with the results they had achieved, he and his comrades quickly retreated into the forest. The two fell silent. The endless bursts of gunfire said it all. After 2 years of meticulous planning, we achieved resounding success. That autumn had to endure an overwhelmingly heavy blow. And what satisfied Mr. Duong the most was that not a single commando had been lost. Previously, in 1965, the Central Office's Standing Committee and the Regional Command decided to establish Bien Hoa Province, assigned the code U1, and assigned the mission to attack the Bien Hoa Air Base rear area, the Long Bin Integrated Depot. Simultaneously, they conducted rural pacification operations to establish a foothold for their armed forces, creating a springboard to attack urban areas, which were the enemy's strongholds. The assault on the Long Bin Central Depot at Hill 50-53 was assigned to 2 commandos from Unit U1. The preparation for this was quite thorough and meticulous. Given the circumstances at that time, our equipment was still quite lacking. The method of placing explosives and then running an electric wire from the outside in to detonate them is not suitable. At that time, there were 2 engineering brigades stationed at the Long Bin Depot for construction work. The treasure is heavily guarded by a large security force. They take turns